Okay. All right. Welcome everyone. We're it's so exciting. We are for the people outside of Israel or even in the United States, it's almost Hanukkah. For people in Europe and in Israel, it is Hanukkah. And we're going to spend the first part of the workshop talking about Hanukkah, B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, what's special about Hanukkah? At least a few ideas. And we're going to, and next Sunday night is also will be Hanukkah, and we're going to continue then. Okay, first of all, Dara is going to tell us, what does the word Chanukah mean?
It means education and dedication.
Education and dedication. Okay, but let's pshat. It's a Chanukah is actually two expressions. Chanu, they rested on Kuf What's Kuf Hey?
Cafe.
Chaf Hey, right? Is 25. It's a lesson in Jewish history. 200 years before the second temple was destroyed, that means approximately 200 BCE, the Greek Empire was spreading all over the world, and they succeeded in turning Syria into a vassal state, where, in other words, they shared their culture, sort of like a what do you call it? When they sell those plastic dishes, what's it called? I forget what it's called. So they would bring their culture to different countries. The people would get excited about their cultures, right? There was a very new age that time. There was equality, and it was very much the use of intellect and sports, right? And the literally, like we say, using the world to the utmost. And Syria became a vassal state, and Syria then tried to make other vassal states, right? And so they tried to Hellenize Israel, okay? And they collected taxes, and they built beautiful stadiums and aqueducts, and they taught that they were teaching Greek culture, right? And the fact was, a lot of Jewish people were attracted to it, okay? And at least in the beginning, it wasn't that their lives were in danger. The Greeks didn't want to kill anybody. They wanted them to become a vassal state, okay? And they did outreach, Greek outreach, okay, to bring in the Jewish people, right? And the Hashmonaim were a family of Kohanim, okay? And they led a revolt against the Greeks, okay? And the Greeks who would contaminated the Holy Temple, because they said you can study Torah, absolutely, but just accept that it's not from God. It's something logical, okay? And so therefore the temple, which was higher than logic, we're going to actually speak about that, okay? They contaminated it. They brought pigs in. They ripped up the Torah scrolls. They did the things of immodesty in the temple, right? Just to desecrate it. Okay, they didn't destroy it; they desecrated it. Okay, so the word Chanukah, it can have two meanings, like Dara said. Either Chanu, that they rested on the 25th of the month of Kislev, that where we are now. That's one way we understand it. Or Chanukah from the word Chanukah Tabayit, dedication. They rededicated the temple. They retook over the temple and purified it. Okay, and for the first time in years, they lit the menorah in the temple. Okay, and then okay, so you could say that a war was a miracle, even though they were few against the many, the pure against the impure, the evil, the good against the evil, right? Okay, but you could still say that somebody could claim that a war was won because of natural abilities. Okay, that there was something that they were cleverer, or for whatever reason stronger. They guerrilla warfare than their enemies. Okay, and so then there was another miracle, that one of the things that the Greek Syrians had done was they contaminated all of the oil that was used to light the menorah in the Holy Temple. Okay, in other words, they didn't have to do much. They just had to open up each day's portion of oil was sealed with the wax seal of the high priest. Okay, and all they did was they opened up all of the oils. They became impure. And even though in a case where all the oil is impure, you're allowed to light the menorah in the temple. Okay, but it would have been a tragedy and a failure. And so they searched and searched and searched until they found one flask, 1 day's worth of oil for the menorah in the temple. And then something miraculous happened, that the menorah stayed lit for 8 days. 8 days until they were able to produce pure oil at a distant place, and to bring it back to Yerushalayim and to light the menorah again. Okay, and so that's how we celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah. The main celebration is that we light a menorah, the menorah of Hanukkah, and we also add, for those of you who are not familiar, you can find it very easily in the internet. We add what's called Alanisim, a specific prayer that describes the military, mostly the military victory of the Jewish people. We add that, and we say Hallel. Hallel is a collection of psalms that we say after the silent prayer. We say it every morning. Okay, there's no musaf, there's no additional Shemona Esrei on Hanukkah. Those are the 3 ways: the lighting of the Hanukkah menorah that starts Friday night, that starts the first night tonight. The second way is through Alanisim, that we also start the first night, and Hallel, which we do tomorrow morning. And the focus, the truth is that there are two holidays that are from the rabbis. Right? We have the 3 regalim, the 3 holidays where it was a mitzvah, a commandment to actually go to Yerushalayim, and those holidays are Pesach, which commemorates going out of Egypt. Shavuot commemorates, I take that back. Pesach is reliving the going out of Egypt, and Shavuos is reliving the receiving of the Torah, and Sukkot, which is the celebration days after the high holidays, is how God protected us in the desert and continues till today, every day, every single person to protect us. Okay, so those are 3 holidays from the Torah. They're called the regalim, and because regel means foot, and it was a mitzvah in the times of the temple that every Jewish person should travel to Yerushalayim. And there are 2 holidays in the cycle of the year that are from the rabbis, and one is Hanukkah, and the other is Purim. And whereas Purim, the Jewish people were saved from death. Haman wanted to kill every single Jewish person. That was his evil plot that was ruined, spoiled by Mordechai and Esther. Okay, but the victory there was a physical victory over a physical threat. Okay, and so the way that we celebrate Purim is by partying, is by eating a lot, is by being happy, even by getting drunk. When we get to Purim, we'll discuss it. But even ad kedei kach, people drink until you're supposed to drink so much that you don't know the difference between Ham and Mordechai. Okay, we're not at Purim now, but it's the all of the celebrations is physical celebrations. Not true about Hanukkah. So what I'm sharing, and I want to say just a few more short things about it, about Hanukkah. The focus has to be on the spiritual part of life. Okay, and we see that the whole idea of lighting the menorah, of bringing light into the world. But we're gonna, okay. I just want I'm gonna. That's the general introduction. I want to say that for personally, as a person who didn't grow up in an Orthodox home, Hanukkah was always the holiday that really resonated with me the most, and I'm going to explain why. I actually heard this from the Rebbe myself, something like 45 years ago, and he says there's a teaching in the scroll of Esther, Megillat Esther. And it says there, V'hayomim elu, at the end of the Megillah, at the end of the scroll, it says, and this is, okay, I want to share, this is for everybody. Dara and Levi, Daniel, Simon, Lisetta, Valeria, Deborah, Sylvia. This is, it's very important. And Hillel, hi, Shalom Hillel. It's very important to me that you understand this idea. What does it say in the scroll of Esther? We believe that the scroll of Esther was written also with divine inspiration. God directed the writings of the scroll of Esther. Okay, and what does it say there? It says at the end of the amazing story, the miraculous salvation of the Jewish people from Haman, Mordechai and Esther are writing there that they say V'hayomim elu nizkarim v'nasim. We're going to remember the 2 days of Purim, the 14th and the 15th days of Adar, about 2 months from now. Okay, we're going to nizkarim v'nasim. We're going to remember the days, and remember the days, remember the calendar date, and do the commandments associated with the holiday of Purim, which is to make a meal and give charity and to give presents to our friends and to hear the Megillah. Those are okay. Now there's a certain contradiction in that sentence, and I hope I can explain it clearly and easily. It says V'hayomim elu nizkarim v'nasim. These days are going to be remembered and done. I don't know about you, but when Chaya Bracha says to me in the morning, when my wife says, on your way home, pick up some milk, and when I come home, she says, did you remember to buy the milk? And when I say yes, that means not only that I remembered to buy the milk, that I bought the milk. Okay, so the word remembering means that you do it also. So in terms of the verse in the Megillah, there's a certain redundancy here. Why does it have to say the Hayomim Elu in these days are remembered and done? Why is remembered and done? Why twice? Okay, and the answer is because not true. These days are remembered when we're going to remember the days of Purim and do the commandments associated with the day, and then we're going to Nasim, we're going to recreate the same exact spiritual energy that existed on that day in the past. We're going to recreate it now. Okay, and that's okay, so that's what Hanukkah is. Hanukkah is recreating the energy by lighting the candles. And even if you know what? We're going to discuss how to light the candles in a minute. But even if you just light one candle a day, just one candle, take one of your Shabbos candles and light one candle with a blessing. You did it, okay? there's a better way to do it. We're going to discuss that. But lighting the candle and adding something into the silent prayer and saying the Psalms of Hallel in the morning, those three things also, we are recreating the same spiritual environment that exists in the past. Now, what was that spiritual environment? The Greeks came in, by the way, just like the Americans and just like every culture, the Jewish people, we live in so many different places, in so many different cultures, and every place has its this aspect that tries to pull us in, to suck us into that thing, that the environment wants to impose its consciousness on us. And what did the Jews do at the time of Hanukkah? The few against the many, the pure against the impure, the evil, the good against the evil. What did they do? They pushed back. And they said, we're not going to let you control us. We're not going to let the environment, this Hellenistic environment control us. We are going to control the environment. Okay, that's every single one of us, no matter where you live, even if you live in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, or in Tzfat, Ir HaKodesh, wherever you are, you have that same challenge, that the environment wants to say that the world is more important than my involvement in Judaism. The world is more, that my appointments are more important than davening, or than prayer, or that studying Torah, or than doing the mitzvahs with full intention. Okay, that there are so many. We have so many. Each of us has so many choices, and so just like the Hashmonaim, the Maccabees, pushed back against the Greeks. And even though they were terrifically outnumbered and out-weaponed and skilled, they weren't soldiers. They were just people like you and I. And nevertheless, they overcame all of the challenges. God gave them incredible success. Okay, so also each of us has that ability to not be overwhelmed by the influences of the society around us. Okay, that we can, instead of being letting the environment control me, I can control my environment, and that's the energy. Okay, please, if I'm not clear, ask me. That's the energy that I get from Hanukkah, and specifically from the three mitzvahs of Hanukkah, lighting the Hanukkah Menorah, adding in my prayers, saying Hallel, but in even a higher level, about focusing on the spiritual side of my life and not the physical side of it. Now, let's, as an example of that, and I'm just going to say, just 1 second, I'm just going to say this one. I have some amazing things, but we're going to leave some of it for next week. But let's just talk for a minute about, you would say, that the lighting of the Hanukkah Menorah relates to the relighting of the menorah in the temple. Okay, and yet the actual actions are very, very different. True, you're lighting candles in both cases, but in the menorah, in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple, they used to light the same seven lights every single day. The second thing was they would light it in the daytime. And the third thing was they would light it inside. And all of those things are different by Hanukkah candles. Now, again, how do we, Deborah, can you tell us, how do we light Hanukkah candles? Is there one number, or do we, can you tell, what's this order for lighting the Hanukkah candle? Can you tell us? No, maybe not. Okay, so I said, I picked on Dara already. Yael, okay, there's all these friends here. Thank you everybody for coming. In the temple, they would light 7 candles, but the Hanukkah menorah, we start the first night with 1 candle, and each night add additional candle. We add, and in the temple they would light inside, and we light usually in a doorway or in a window, or in Yerushalayim, they actually light outside the house in a little glass box. It's very beautiful. In Tzfat also, as we speak, Ascent is running lantern tours to walk around the old city of Tzfat and to see all the Chanukiot. Okay, and the third thing, again, the three things were that we add every day as opposed to one static number, and number two, we light inside, outside. Excuse me, we light at night and not in the day. And the third thing was that we light outside and not like it was in the temple inside. What does that mean? And this is the secret for maximizing the energy, right? The mitzvah of the candles in the temple were given at a time when the Jewish people were at peace, when they didn't have any. There were problems sometimes, but for the most part, there was no threat. The idea of the Hanukkah Menorah was a time when the Jewish people were fighting for their lives, where they were fighting to protect our whole community, our whole nation, and in particular our Judaism. 1 second. Okay, and so that's why there are three differences between the candelabra, the menorah that they would light in the temple, and the menorah the Chanukiah, the Hanukkah menorah that we light now. That then they didn't have to. They could light the same. What I did today, it was like what I did yesterday, and what I did the day before, and what I'll do tomorrow. We didn't have to fight. We were maintaining our Jewish tradition, but now we have to add every day. We have to add in our candles, and we have to add in the way that we serve the Almighty. Because if we don't add, if you're not pushing ahead, you're falling behind. The world will overcome you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we can't just be worried about our households, the way they would light the menorah inside the temple. We can't just be worried about our own households. We have to worry about the second thing was lighting in the daytime and the nighttime. We can't just light in the daytime. The daytime, because in the time of the temple, it was light inside the temple and it was light outside the temple. It was light everywhere. No. Now we have to light at nighttime. We have to literally be neiros laha'oyer, candles that shine the darkness. That we have to push back on the darkness. Everybody, no matter where you are, you have to be an example of Judaism, an example of moral standards. We're going to talk about that in the Keter Shem Tov, an example of uprightness that other people can point at each of us and say, right, that this is somebody that I want to exemplify. Okay, and the third thing is, instead of lighting just one second. No, I got, okay, whatever. We're adding, lighting up the darkness, and not just being inside, going outside, affecting other people. Those are the three things about Hanukkah. Okay, and so everyone, if you have a Hanukkah menorah, okay, then with the first night we start with the first candle on the far right, and each day we add an additional candle to the left, and each day adding and adding and adding, and that's the same way that we have to add each day in our spiritual focus and attention until we get to the last day. I don't want to give away all the secrets now, but there's a difference between 7 and 8. The last day of Hanukkah is the 8th day of Hanukkah. What's 7? 7 is the cycle of the week. 7 is the 6 days of the week in Shabbos. Okay, what's 8? 8 is higher than the normal order. Okay, until we get to the last day of Hanukkah, where we literally are on a completely different spiritual level, and we're going to discuss it more, please God, next Sunday night. I just want to say, have I been clear so far? Is anybody? You're all sleeping. Is anybody there?
No.
Was I making sense, Valerio? Yael, was I clear?
We're
Very
hearing you
clear,
clear.
Rabbi.
Okay.
Very clear.
I want to say one more thing. I just want to say one more thing. You have, there's another very interesting thread that connects the holiday of Hanukkah directly to what we're studying, Keter Shem Tov. And I want to say that this week, the piece that we're going to study is a little bit complicated. Okay, actually, this week and next week are a little complicated. And what's something you have with the mitzvah of Hanukkah is with oil. By the way, you have the mitzvah of in Sukkot is with water. We discussed it then. It's water and not wine. Every day they would make a libation of wine on the altar, and on Sukkot they would make a libation of water. So here's a holiday with water. Okay, the holiday of Hanukkah is with oil. Even though some people have a custom to light wax candles, the most special way, the most honorable way, the most meticulous way to light the Hanukkah candles is to use olive oil the way that they used olive oil in the temple. Now you have a very interesting thing about olive oil, two aspects of oil that are contradictory. On the one part, oil doesn't mix with other liquids. No matter how much, everybody has their salad dressing jar, but a pitcher, they put in the oil and the vinegar and the garlic powder and the salt and pepper, and you shake it up, okay? And you have to pour it out in the salad right away, because if you don't, what happens? The oil separates, it rises to the top. Okay. On the other hand, oil is so interesting because it penetrates into things, right? If you put some oil in the top page of a book, just on a paper book, it'll seep through, how much oil there is, all the way through to the end of the book. If oil, right? If you put oil on your skin because it goes inside. Oil, I can't think of the right word in English. It seeps in. It goes through. So that's the same idea with Kabbalah and Chassidut, right? What did the Greeks want to do? They wanted to take away the divinity from the study of Torah. Study Torah, they said, just like we study philosophy. You can study Torah, it's another philosophy, just you can't say it's from God. It's all human, it's all man-made. Okay, no. We say the Torah, and in particular Chassidut and Kabbalah, right, is something from God. And since it's from God, it's like oil. What's the two things about oil? First is that it always rises to the top. It's always above everything else in terms of the ideas, and are always challenge and overcome all of the ideas of the physical world. They rise to the top. And the second thing is it imbues itself into everything. If it's true Torah, then it affects every part of our life. It doesn't just stay in one place. It seeps into everything. Okay. And that's the way, the power that we get. Again, I'm saying it from Hanukkah, and I'm helping everyone. The mitzvah is to light the Hanukkah candles. You can light them. It says until Yotze Regel Min Hashuk, until, as long as there's people still chilling around outside. Okay, I don't know where you live. In Tel Aviv, people all the time walking around. Okay, but here in Tzfat, let's say, 10:30, 11 o'clock, you can still light your Hanukkah candles because there's still people going around. There will still be people that will see your candles. Okay, and Al Hanisim, the part that we add in the prayer, can be said during every single silent prayer, and Hallel can be said all day long. Okay, the whole purpose of celebrating all the mitzvahs of Hanukkah is to connect to my spiritual life, that I should control my environment. I'm not going to let the the environment, the secular environment, control me. And whether it's a friend who wants to take you out to something that's not in the spirit of Judaism, or whether it's watching TV or reading a novel that's going to take a person's head away from Jewish things. Okay, I'm not saying not to do any of those things. The point is to realize that during Hanukkah, the whole mission is that my Judaism should be on top, right? And that should be controlling my environment, and all the other things should be secondary. Okay, thank you very much. Let me just see if I forgot anything. Okay, the main thing, again, like we said, to be neiros la'oyer, to be candles that shine out. That's put all the other drushes aside. To be candles that shine up. That's like we said so many times before. Each of you are my secret service, not mine. I'm nothing. I'm just, I'm a talking head. Okay, I'm just a vessel for all of the things that I learned from my teachers. Okay, and I'm sharing it with you. Okay, but we said before, there's the army. They're the people that wear the uniforms. They have the black hats and the glasses and the beards, right? And they can't go every place because they're right away identified as being soldiers in the army. And there are people that don't have those black hats. They don't wear beards. They don't have glasses. Maybe they have, just maybe not. Okay, but they can go places that nobody else can go, and they can take the Torah that we learned. They can talk about Hanukkah, and they can talk about oil seeping through from end to end, which is the power of Torah. They can talk about being candles that light up the darkness that's possible for everybody. And each of us can make other people, inspire them and make them part of the army also. Okay, that's the idea of Hanukkah. Okay, Neros la'oyer, candles that shine up the darkness. Okay, so let's move on to the Keter Shem Tov. Unless there's any questions. Somebody has to have a question.
I don't have a question, but I think the right word you're looking for is to percolate.
Percolate?
To seep through.
Seep through. I don't know. So percolate is like with coffee. Well, you know what? We'll let's see. We're going to figure it out. I'm sure it'll turn up. Okay, but thank you very much for that.
All right, thank you.
What was I going to say? You know, one of the questions they ask about Hanukkah is if the first that vial of oil was enough for one day, and so it lasted for 8 days. So according to that, the first day there wasn't any miracle because there was enough oil for one day. Okay, and so why did we say the blessing on the menorah, on the Chanukiah, for 8 days? We should only say it for 7 days, right? Got the question? And the answer is actually, it's an answer from the Yosef Cairo. Yosef Cairo was the author of the Code of Jewish Law, one of the great tzaddikim, righteous people of Tzfat, and he said the answer is that the only 1/8 of the oil burned every day. In other words, instead of the entire content of the cup that held the oil on the candelabra in the temple, instead of it all burning away the first day, and then it stayed lit for 7 consecutive days. No, instead of it all being burned, only 1/8 was burned. And that way it was able to last through the 8 days. And that's why we're able to say a blessing on the menorah all 8 days. I don't know if I mentioned that, right? That there are actually 2 blessings, and they're so beautiful. The blessings on the Chanukiah, we say the first blessing is, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, to light the candles of Hanukkah. And the second blessing is, everybody, those of you who know, thank God. Those of you who don't know, I'm going to blow you away now. The second blessing is, it says, blessed are you, God, our Lord, Master of the universe, that you made miracles for our fathers, B'yomim ahem, in those days, b'zman hazeh, at this time. You can read at this time, meaning at this calendar date, the 25th day of the month of Kislev, or you can read this time, meaning this time in ours, in mine and your life. God is making miracles. That's the blessing that we make. That
Amen.
God is making miracles, not just then. He's making miracles for us now. Okay, so it's so important to light the candle and to say the blessings. If you, the first time you do it, whether it's tonight or any other night, you say also Shechiyanu. Blessed are you, God, Lord, our God, our Lord, King of the universe, the Shechiyanu, that He kept us alive, the Kiyamanu, and established us, the Hegiyanu, that we were able to reach this special time. It's only said once, the first time that you light the candles. Okay, let's move on to Keter Shem Tov. Thank you very much for listening to me. I more than you received, I received. Okay, so let's look inside. I didn't have a chance to translate it. Hey, Hillel, you're gonna have be upset with me, but we do have something new, that we have the texts with vowels. Everybody who wants to can receive the text in advance, and I promise to the best of my ability, I'm going to translate the text. I know it's important, and I apologize for not doing it. Okay, so everybody look
It's
inside.
fine, Rabbi. Don't worry. Thanks.
Thank you, Hillel. Okay, but you can write down the translation now if you want. Okay, Tzaddik Tes 99, Mea Ba'al Shem Tov. Okay, Tzarech la'aleis machshavos zoros. Oh my gosh, what is it saying? That a person has to take negative, unholy, in some cases, inappropriate thoughts and elevate them. Okay, I don't know if anybody remembers, but we've had about 3 months ago, we learned something else. This was something of a part of the shita, of the teachings of the Ba'al Shem Tov, that just like every physical thing has a spark, an apple has a divine spark in it. A ride on a bus has a divine spark in it. A piece of clothing that you wear has a divine spark in it. And the tefillin that we wear, and the yarmulkes that we wear, and the talit, the tzitzit that we wear, all have spiritual sparks. And when we use something in an appropriate way, we take the spark that's in exile in that physical thing, and we send it back to its source. And when all of the sparks that came from this breaking of the vessels, we discussed this before, right? That God had, there were 10 sfirot, 10 attributes, and in the beginning, God poured energy into them until pow, they exploded. Okay, and those sparks make up the physical world that we live in. And it's such an interesting, in other words, what seems to us to be reality is really like a cracked mirror, okay? Because it's all kinds of sparks that fell into a world, into an arrangement that hides God. And when we take those sparks out of exile, every challenge that we have, every conversation that we have, every physical thing that we use, and our intention is to take that spark that's out of exile, we're redeeming it. Now, the Ba'al Shem Tov said that that's true about thoughts also. And the truth is, in the second and third generations after the Ba'al Shem Tov, almost all of his students said no, that we're living in times where the Mashiach is coming. Okay, we're living in very weird times, and it's not so easy to elevate sparks. I want to say something about that. I'm not talking, one second. Actually, let me think. I once please God, all of you who are married and have children, you should have only incredible Jewish pride in all of your children always. And even sometimes, our children don't behave exactly the way that we want to. We still have to love them and help them and to help them push ahead. Okay, but there was once a story. There's a story about a person that goes to the Rebbe and has a private audience with the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said to the Rebbe, I have a son that's not behaving in a way that's appropriate. Okay, and probably the man said to the Rebbe, I'm at fault, and I want the Rebbe to give me a way to repair myself. Tikkun, give me a tikkun for myself, because obviously, if my son's not behaving properly, it's my fault. The Rebbe said, well, what do you mean? And the man said, well, of course, Rebbe, there's the expression in English that an apple does not fall from far from the tree. Okay, right? Our children are our fruits, right? And a fruit, when it falls close to the tree, right? And so if a child has certain behaviors that are inappropriate, it comes from the parents. And the Rebbe said that when is that true? When there's a ruach mitzuya, when you have a normal wind, right? And the normal wind it shakes up the tree and the apples fall down. But what about when you have a storm wind? In Hebrew, it's called the ruach she'ena mitzuya. It's not a normal wind. What happens when you have a storm wind? The apples fall far from the tree. Okay, so we're living in times. So the Rebbe said, no, you can't take responsibility. You can help your child, you can guide him. I heard an expression: you can be a migdal or, you can be a lighthouse for your child. Okay, but you can't take responsibility. You can't get stuck in thinking that every single thing that our child does is a negative thing. All of us want to take credit for the positive things that our children do, and for the negative things also. Okay, so no. So the Rebbe said, no, you don't have to take responsibility for the negative things. Okay. And some things are obvious, perhaps. If a person's an angry person, the child's an angry person, that makes sense. Okay, if a parent wasn't a good example and the child turns out in a negative way, fine. But what happens when a parent tried to be a good example and did the best they could, and the child turns out in a different way? Okay, so that's that. But if you're living in turbulent times, then a person doesn't have to take responsibility. It's the same way with our thoughts. Sometimes the thoughts that we have are so incongruous with where we're holding that it's almost for sure came to us from something that we saw or something that we heard, or even, I'm going to say, there are two other very famous stories that are told by religious people, right? First, that certain types of food bring thoughts of against Judaism, against belief in God. One example, in general, food that's not kosher, it can bring a person to negative thoughts. Okay, in particular, even people that keep kosher, but they say that milk, there's a certain mitzvah of what's called Chalav Yisrael. Chalav Yisrael means that from the time the cow is milked, the milk has to always be under a Jewish supervision. It sounds so weird, right? But actually, what's called Chalav Yisrael, a Jewish. Oh, it's so late already. Wow. Okay. Chalav Yisrael, Mishkichim, kashrus supervisors actually go out to the dairy farms and are there on site, on location, as the cows are milked. They may be standing in one place, they have cameras for all the other places. They're actually supervision of all the time. Okay, so there's an example that negative thoughts can come not because a person's a bad person or they're not a believer, but from food they eat. There's another story that once a person it came to the Rebbe, right? This is in the very beginning of the Rebbe's leadership, and they said a person that the Rebbe knew, another Chassid, another follower of the Rebbe, they said, Rebbe, I'm so worried about Mr. So-and-so. He actually said words of kfirah. Kfirah are denying God's existence. And the Rebbe said, don't worry about it. Just tell him to stop reading the newspaper, the secular newspaper, before he goes to sleep. Right? That we believe that what you think about before you go to sleep has an effect on your dreams, and your dreams have an effect on what you think about all day long. So here's two examples of people could have negative thoughts, and it has nothing to do with them at all. And I want to say even more than that. We're starting. Last week I begged everybody. We're starting Tanya. Today is the very first day of the text of Tanya. Whoever didn't try to find it, I'm begging you to please look go into Chabad.org and say daily Tanya, and you'll get the text for today. You can get it in English, in Hebrew, Spanish, Russian, French, with commentaries. It's unbelievable, okay? Today is the first day. You don't have to lose out, okay, to start the studying. So one of the things that we're going to learn in a few days from now in Tanya is that everybody doesn't have just one soul. When you say soul, you think right away, oh, a divine soul, something that God gave me, a portion of God from above. But no, every single person has two souls. Yes, one that's connected to God and one that's connected to the body. Okay, and these two souls are fighting, and so a person could actually part of it could say, I don't want to do this Jewish thing, and it's not him at all. It's this what's called the nefesh Bahamas. It's his animal soul that's telling him, and that the whole purpose of Tanya is to explain that our divine soul can overcome and control the animal soul. That we're not psychotic. Nobody's crazy. I have this voice saying this and this voice saying this, and I think, I may be nuts, right? No, we have two souls. Okay, so that's the same thing with thoughts. So not every negative thought means that all of my effort in Jewish tradition has been for naught. It could sometimes come from food that I ate. I had a malted that had not Jewish milk in it, or I read the newspaper before I went to sleep. That's it. So I'm finished now with that. Okay, but that's this idea. So, but I want to still. It's very important that we read through this for the content. But we're putting aside this idea. I'm suggesting we don't think about having to elevate thoughts. Okay. Okay, look inside. So it says, it's now, after all of those introductions, you're so patient with me, all of you. Okay, it says, it says that the Ba'al Shem Tov says you have to elevate negative thoughts. Okay, so it's not ridiculous to think about a negative thought that I would have. Maybe it came from something that I ate, or maybe it came from something that I saw, or I thought about, or I read the news before I went to sleep. Okay, and to try to figure out what its source is, but to elevate it, just push it aside. But he says, but he actually is speaking about every aspect of a spark in something physical. That when we have a challenge or a negative thought in this case, right? We have to say that it comes from three different possible sources. Okay. And what are those three sources? They are the three high sfirot, emotional sfirot: chesed, kindness; gvura is a judgment, okay, and the third is tiferet, which is could either be compassion or empathy. Okay. And so you can, all of the sparks come from one of those three things, either from kindness, judgment, or from compassion and empathy. Okay, Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. So what when a spark from one of those three levels, they're called the three kavin, the three lines. Okay, so when something comes from kindness and falls into the world, it could be on a simple level, too much kindness, that could be destructive. At its lowest level, Kabbalah says that kindness evolves into a znut, illicit sexuality. Okay, that's the lowest level of kindness. Okay, in terms of judgment, gevurah, that falls into anger and idol worship. In terms of compassion, tiferet, which is compassion or empathy, it explains that falls into arrogance, ga'ava, false pride. Okay, so those are examples of the ways that the higher emotional attributes fall, the sparks of divinity in them fall into the world, are enclosed in negativity. Okay, and he says the truth. So he says, again, I'm going to the beginning, that the Ba'al Shem Tov is saying, we have to elevate our negative thoughts. Derech Gimel Kavin, we have to look what their source was in the three different supernal sirot, emotional sirot of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, kindness, judgment, and compassion. Okay, v'tzorech letet lev, a person has to pay attention. I'll call machshava zara on every negative thought that they have. Me'ezakav, from which of these three places he came from. La loisa shorsha, and to take it back to its source, to higher than its source. Okay, so he explains, right, that taking the source of kindness in the crown is called pleasure, oneg. Okay, and it fell into negative pleasure, and we can fix it by taking it back into spiritual true pleasure from spiritual things. Okay, Gevurah fell into anger and idol worship, and where it's his place, Gevurah is judgment, okay, or power, and its place in Keter, in the crown, is what is ratzon, will. Okay, instead of using our energy to lose it, we have to use our energy to focus on serving Hashem. The third level of Tiferet is empathy or compassion. We said it falls into arrogance, ga'ava, and its place in heaven is in faith, divine faith in God. Okay, those are the three tikkunim. But I want to use those same ideas. We're going to see how he develops it. Okay. So v'tzorech letet lev, a person has to pay attention. I'll call machshava zara, which every negative thought or every spark that he comes in contact with, every spark that's lost in the physical world, me'ezakav, from which place it comes, every line that comes from ulolos l'shorsha, and to return it, to elevate it to its source. The gimel kavim elu, these three divine sfirot, high emotional sfirot, okay, are elu nikraim avot. They're called the fathers because they're the source of all the sparks that come into the world, and that when the sparks fall into the physical reality and the spark of divinity is hidden, then it says that's called a klala. It's called a curse. Okay, and a curse in the sense that it's hiding on the divinity. But when we take something negative, a negative behavior, for instance, when a person takes his anger and instead of losing it, he takes that same energy and uses it to something to have passion in, something Jewish to have passion in. or he takes his arrogance that comes from Tiferet, arrogance, and he says, I'm going to be proud of being a Jewish person. And a person who's really proud of Jewish, then he's going to be meticulous about how he behaves in terms of all of the Jewish actions, in whether on his own or with other people. That's also pride, okay? And kindness is it actually brings that example of illicit sexuality, okay, of holding back and finding pleasure in positive Jewish things. When a person takes their behavior and transforms it from something negative to positive, they're taking the klala, the curse, and they're turning it into a blessing. Anyway, and so that's what he says. The haklipa, when the spark is surrounded by materiality, it's called nikra klala, curse. That's an example would be a negative thought, or another example would be a negative behavior, like I said. And so how do you supposed to picture it? What is he teaching us here? How do you visualize it? You visualize it by saying, Behu Golis Hashchina. It's literally the Shechina, the divine power in the world, the divine power that each of us has, right? That was captured and enclosed in a negative, in a negative case. Okay, that every time I have a negative behavior, I have to realize that what is it? It's the Golis Hashchina, the exile of the indwelling of God, right? Betoch, within the depths of the klipot, of the shells that hide unholiness, right? And that when I take that negative action and I bring it closer to appropriate behavior, I'm taking the spark of divinity, I'm taking the Shekhinah out of exile, and I'm allowing it to go back to its source, back to its place on high. Okay, and he continues. For that, Zeshakosov Korva Esnashi Gaola. It's late already. I'm so sorry. I spoke too much. I apologize. But I want to say this is the pasuk. It says Korvas Nafshi Ga'ala. It's the 19th verse in the 69th Psalm. And I want to say to everybody, if you don't have anybody that doesn't have a Psalm that they can read, an English Hebrew Psalm, then please get one. And if you can't get, you can look it up in the internet also. Okay, it has everything is internet. You want a translation of Psalms into English. And I just want, what do the verses say? We're going to start with the 15th verse. This is a song. King David is calling out to Hashem to help him. It says, rescue me from the mire so that I do not sink. Let me be saved from my enemies and from deep waters. Let not the current of water sweep me away, nor the deep swallow me, nor let the pit close its mouth over me. Answer me, God, for your kindness is good. According to your abundant mercies, turn to me. That was the 17th verse. The 18th verse, do not hide your face from your servant, for I am in distress. Hurry to answer me. Now, here's the 19th verse, and it's in the same context. Draw near to my soul and liberate it. Redeem me so that my enemies will not feel triumphant. Okay, and so what are the words in Hebrew? The words in the Hebrew are karvas nafshi ga'ola. Okay, and again, the straightforward explanation is God karvas nafshi, help come bring my soul closer to you and redeem it. Okay, so the Ba'al Shem Tov wants to read it a different way. He says, when part of my soul, whether my thoughts or in most my actions get stuck in some negative place, okay, sometimes I just convince myself that there's a mitzvah that I can't do, or there's a particular food that's not kosher and I have to eat it, or you know what? It doesn't even have to be something that's a sin. It could be just some other type of destructive behavior I know that I have to go to sleep early and I I just consistently go to sleep late, and then the whole next day is a mess. Whatever things that go against my ability to serve Hashem. So what is the Ba'al Shem Tov saying? Karvas nafshi, please God, those parts of my soul that have fallen into the depths, bring them close to you, redeem them, help me take these sparks, these fallen sparks, the Shekhinah, the indwelling of God that fell into the depths, help me bring it up, please Hashem. That's what we're saying. Rot Salomer means to say la'alot chelki, that I'm begging God that the parts of my soul, right, that have fallen into low places, nitzutze hakadusha. Look at the words here. The sparks of divinity that have fallen so low, mitocha klipa, into the depths of materiality, they got lost there. Okay, please God, bring my soul out of the depths, el hakadusha, to the holiness. That's nikra geula. That's called redemption. Redeem my soul. It's a very interesting counterpoint here. You know, sometimes Chassidus demands, it says, we said it before, sur merava aseh tov. The verse says, push away evil. It says in Mishlei, Proverbs, push away evil and do good. You know, first you have to get rid of the schmutz, and then you can do good. You don't put the furniture into the house till you clean out all the dust and dirt. But sometimes the Ba'al Shem Tov says, sur merah, how do you push away evil? By doing good. Overcome the evil with lots of light. Just forget about the evil. If you're going to get involved with the evil, you're just going to sink down. Just do good, do good, do good, and the evil will automatically disappear. Okay, but sometimes the Ba'al Shem Tov says, like here, work on yourself. Take care of your soul. Identify the parts of us that we're having the most difficulty with. Envision that it's the Shekhinah literally falling into the depths. It's my soul is down there in the darkness. And every time I fix a negative action, every time I go to bed on time, every time I do all of those things that I know I need to do to grow spiritually, right? Every time I wake up in the morning and I start by thinking about how many things I have gratitude for God for. How much does God do for me every day? And I have to pay him back by working on myself and elevating myself from the negative, right? That's what it means. Look in the words here, that I take the parts of my soul, my nefesh, okay, that have fallen into the depths, I bring them back, el hakadusha, to the holiness. That's called redemption. You're allowed sometimes to work on yourself, private time, to help bring yourself out of the low places, right? And that's what he can finishes. He kitzorch lespalel al golas nafsho. That everybody in their life, there are times when we have to pray for the exile of our own soul, okay, of our nefesh, ruach, v'neshama, the three parts of the soul that are in the body, okay, and that they're the most challenged. There are two parts of the soul that are in heaven. Yechid is with God all the time, and Chaya connects us, the higher part of the soul, with the lower part of the soul. But the three parts of the soul that are in the body are nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So sometimes you have to look at ourselves and be objective and see, where are my problems? What's holding me back from connecting to Hashem the way that I want to, the way that I know that I'm capable of? Okay, and we have to pray for those parts, and not just pray, but to do something about it, to try to fix the negative things. And that's what he says. A person has to pray on the exile of his own nefesh, ruach, and neshama that are eitzel yetzahara, that are eitzel, that they are more connected to my Yetzer Hara, my evil inclination, than to where I want them to be, to my divine inclination. Just 1 second. I just want to plug in my computer. My battery ran out. Just 1 second. Let's see. Okay, that's the end of the piece. And I'm 10 minutes late. And anybody who I put them under pressure, I apologize. Okay, so what did we speak about today? The Ba'al Shem Tov ostensibly was talking about elevating negative thoughts, but the paradigm is the same. The paradigm is the same, is that our challenges are where parts of our soul fell into negative places, and that when a person takes the corrects his negative behaviors, when he's taking literally the spark of divinity, the Shekhinah, that fell into the depths of physical mire, and he's elevating it back up to its source. He's transforming himself and transforming the world. And the very beautiful thing that the Ba'al Shem Tov said here was that it's absolutely okay that sometimes you have to think about yourself. You have to do what you need to do to help yourself. Okay, sometimes we have to worry about other people. Sometimes we have to worry about the world, but sometimes it has to be working on ourselves. And when we can correct those things in ourselves, we're also going to bring the entire world back to holiness. Okay. Any thank you very much for being with me. Does anybody have any questions? Don't everybody speak up at once. I saw if you're not gonna, I'm going to say one more story, and then I'm going to think about why you never have any questions. Anyway, there are 5 messages here. Okay, it's appropriate for, and I only saw one question here. Anybody, what we're studying is appropriate for everybody, not just for whether a B'nai Noach or a Jewish person or a person that's more involved in Jewish things or less involved in Jewish things. It's appropriate for everybody. That's the answer to that question. Now I'm going to tell one more story. That a friend of mine, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, up until he passed away, and then it was continued afterwards, sent emissaries around the world, yeshiva students in many cases, during their break, to distant countries and all over the United States to try to spread Judaism. They would fill up a trunk of a car with books and mezuzahs and tefillin, and they would go and find Jews in distant places. Okay, so the story once about, I think it's, I know the person, but I'm not sure, so I don't want to say his name. His mission was to get to Alaska, and he actually got to Alaska, and it wasn't Anchorage. There are quite a few Jews in Anchorage. He got to another town in Alaska, where he was told that there were some Jewish people, and he got there and he started asking around if there are any Jewish people, right? And no, there's no Jewish people here. He asked everybody. Nobody knew any Jewish people, and he said, I came all this way. There has to be one Jewish person here. God brought me here. There has to be a reason I came here. And so he actually went to the principal of one of the schools, and he asked him. I think there was only one school. And the principal of the school, and asked him if he could actually meet with one of the classes. And the principal said yes, and he went into one of the classes, and he says, does anyone know anybody who's Jewish? And a 5-year-old girl raised her hand, and she said, my mother is Jewish. And he is a 22-year-old young man, and he found a 5-year-old girl, right? And he can't ask her, where do you live? It's like not appropriate, right? What can he tell this girl, this Jewish girl? Why did the Lubavitcher Rebbe send him to Alaska, to this woebegone place in the middle of nowhere, where he found the one Jewish person in the entire town? And she, okay, and what should he tell her? Should he tell her you have to study Torah? Should he tell her to tell your mother to? What should he tell her? And this is what the story is. He told her that the Alaska is the most farthest western place on the planet, because of the date line, right? On the other side of the date line, it's already the next day. So the last place that Shabbos begins on the whole world is in Alaska. And he said to her that the entire world is waiting for your Shabbos candle. right, that you're the last Shabbos candle that's going to be lit before Shabbos begins, right? And you, right, bring the whole world into Shabbos. Okay, that's the idea, right, of that we want to take from all the things that we're studying from the Ba'al Shem Tov. Right, we want to take, right. It's not about coulda, shoulda, or woulda. It's about what I can take from it that can make my life more effective. That I should be a candle to show divine light into the world. Okay, that's our mission. Okay, okay, I'm finished. I'm not saying another word. Zip.
No.
until next week. Oh, am I going to blow
Thank you, Rabbi.
My
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, Deborah. Okay.
Chag Sameach.
Chag
Thank you.
Sameach, everybody. Okay. Anybody has any questions about Hanukkah, about anything? Just send us an email. Put it in the group. Whatever you can. Our mission is that everybody should be candles that light up the darkness.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're
Man.
in this class, you're able to do it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's not even a question. You can do it. Okay. Yeah, Levi, you hear me? You can do it. Okay.
I
can do it. That's it. So go and run with it, please God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Amen.
Amen.
Man.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shavua
Bye
tov.
bye.